Okay. Okay, we're recording. And now I'm going to share.
Good evening. This is William Baker, and on behalf of the entire Choral Foundation family, I want to thank you for being a part of our summer masterclasses through the Institute for Healthy Singing. I want to thank Jamia Sale and our entire faculty for their excellent work in assembling these interesting and exciting programs. The Choral Foundation is here to serve you through elite ensembles like the William Baker Festival Singers and the New South Festival Singers, specialty ensembles like Kansas City Bronze and Zimria Festivali Atlanta, our summer groups in Cobb County and Atlanta and Kansas City and in Lee Summit, and educational programs like the Institute for Healthy Singing, the Institute for Choral Creativity, our Choral Scholars Program, the Sullivan Choral Library, and Choral Conversations. During these difficult times, great music, music of timeless beauty and worth, helps us keep our spirits up and helps us look toward a brighter and better future. Thank you for being a part of our summer program, and please remember to contact us at festivalsingers.org or at mail@festivalsingers.org if we can serve you in any way. God bless.
Okay. So, thank you for being here tonight. I am Jonathan Pilkington. I'm in Atlanta, and thanks to Ross Kimbrough for being my co-host. Is it Kimbrough or Kimbrough?
It's Kimbrough.
Okay. So Ross Kimbrough is the co-host. He's letting people in, and he's going to be kind of managing the chat. There's a message there that you can see now that gives a little information that you might want to read. And also, if you have questions, there will be time for question and answer at the end, and that will be the place to ask your question anytime, and then Ross will keep track of the questions and let me know when we get to that point. Um, so just in case you didn't read my bio, I'll highlight some things from it. I live in Atlanta now. I'm from Georgia originally. Um, I got my undergraduate degree here in music education at Shorter College when it was a college and not a university. And then I moved to New Jersey, went to Westminster Choir College, and got a master's in voice pedagogy and performance. So I was not there for choral music as a choral conductor, but I did all the choral singing and got to sing with the New York Philharmonic in those amazing choral experiences and the Philadelphia Orchestra. Um, and then I moved to New York and lived there for 6 years, and I did a ton of choral singing when I was there, more with the New York Philharmonic and other organizations. And then I moved back to Georgia in 2009 and started teaching at Piedmont College in North Georgia. And that I was there for 10 years. I got my DMA in voice performance with an emphasis in voice pedagogy um, into 2014, and then moved to Atlanta a few years ago and am teaching at several different places now, mostly privately. So that's me. And I would say my focus in my career is more, well, one side of it is teaching, and then the other side is as a solo performer. So that's how I got involved with the Choral Foundation, was singing some solos here in Atlanta. Haydn's Creation and Elijah and Carmina Burana were some of the highlights. And it's always been a good experience there. But I still love choral singing and do it. I sing at Trinity Presbyterian Church here in Atlanta in their choir, which is what Norman McKenzie, the chorus master of the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra, directs. So it has always been a big part of my life. Okay. um, so the name of the thing tonight is Taming the Tenor Tessitura. And as I was kind of preparing, I was thinking it's really all about making choices while you're singing as a tenor. Um, so if you didn't get the handout, there's a link for that in the chat and how to get that. It doesn't you can very easily do without the handout, but I wanted to start with a quick anatomy lesson, sort of, because I think some people are imagery, some people are anatomy, some people are science. People learn things in all different ways. So, in the brief time we have, I want to throw a bunch of different ideas at you. So I'll just share that. I'll actually make it bigger. So this, the image on the left is, in case you don't know, it's looking down the throat, basically. Where it says the thyroid is the Adam's apple, and then it's going back. So the main muscles here are this is the thyroarytenoid muscle, which is the main body of the vocal folds. So it attaches to the thyroid and the arytenoid cartilages. In case you don't know, so the arytenoids sit in the back and they swivel. So there's the opening of the glottis, which is the space between the vocal folds. So when the arytenoids swivel, they help to close the vocal folds. And then there are muscles back here that are not shown, called the interarytenoids, that further close them. So if you don't have complete closure, you have a breathy sound. So a lot of young sopranos especially deal with that. And then, so the main point of me showing this is, so the thyroarytenoid is what's responsible for our chest voice. So if we only had a thyroarytenoid, we would have a very limited range, could sing in chest voice, and that's about it. So when that muscle contracts, when any muscle contracts, it gets fatter and shorter. So that maybe can help explain why that's for lower pitches, chest voice. Then, just like any sort of string, if you stretch it, you get higher pitches. So the vocal folds have to be stretched in order to sing in a higher range. So you can't really, a muscle does not stretch itself. It has to be stretched by another muscle. So it's hard to kind of show it, but the cricothyroid, so here again is the Adam's apple, all the way to the right, and in there is what you see on the left side. So the cricothyroid takes the larynx and tilts it when it contracts. So when the cricothyroid contracts and tilts the larynx, that stretches the vocal folds. So that's responsible for our falsetto. And so people have different words for falsetto, chest voice, head voice, modal voice. I already said head voice. But I choose chest voice, just so we're on the same page with language. Chest voice is, if I'm down here, ah, in pure chest voice. If I'm in falsetto, so that's pure falsetto. So in pedagogy terms, we would call falsetto a cricothyroid dominant sound. So the cricothyroid is stretching and working. It's stretching the thyroarytenoid. And the thyroarytenoid isn't doing much work. It's just sitting there vibrating because of the air going through it. If we're mostly chest voice, we have a thyroarytenoid dominant sound. So the whole challenge for us, especially as tenors, is coordinating those two muscles. So that's the point. Um, so that gets to the topic of registration. I'm going to stop sharing so I can see your faces. Um, okay, so registration. So if we think of the voice as having two main registers, chest voice and falsetto, when they work together, you have your mixed voice, or that's the language I use. Um, some people call falsetto head voice. Some people call mixed voice head voice. So it's confusing. So I'm just going to say it again. So I use chest voice is one thing, falsetto is another thing, and when they work together, it's mixed voice. So if I'm not purely using one or the other, it's a mix, and the mix can vary greatly. So I'm just going to demonstrate some things. So if I'm going up a scale in my chest voice, it's like this. I couldn't go much farther than that comfortably. That wasn't even very comfortable because I didn't allow any mix to happen. On the other hand, if I come down, I can go down very low in my falsetto, but it's not very useful unless it's a pianissimo in choral singing. Um, so the theory is that if you have a strong chest voice and you have a strong falsetto, you should be able to have a mixed voice, unless you have some other tension that's preventing it. So most people, I think, probably don't really exercise their falsetto as much as they should. So that's kind of my number one thing. If you feel that you struggle in the tenor tessitura, then you should exercise your falsetto. And I should also mention, since we have several women here, if you have started singing tenor because you lost your high notes, there's probably hope for you. You probably could exercise your head voice and strengthen that. It's just muscles. I mean, of course, there are hormones and all sorts of things that affect us, but it's just like I'm not going to start running a marathon or doing ballet tomorrow. I have to train for it. So, so because I have my strong falsetto and my strong chest voice, I can do this. First of all, I start in a mix. As opposed to So so that was all a mix. It gets more heady at the top and it's more chesty at the bottom. But I'm always using some blend of the two registers. So that's my biggest thing. If I were directing a choir, I would make sure people understood that, because especially the music if we're going to look at tonight, the Randall Thompson Alleluia can be so painful if you don't understand how to mix. Okay, let's see. So first, before we move on, I'm just going to do it my own way. Any questions about those ideas that I've shared? You can ask them if you want to, and I'll answer when I get to it, but I'll keep talking. So the next thing I wanted to talk about was just some ideas about breathing and support. To me, a good breath is when most people know how to take a good breath. You expand down low. You allow the belly to expand, and don't raise the shoulders. That's kind of the first thing you ever learn in any choir. But I think what doesn't get talked about even in voice lessons is expanding the rib cage. So I'm gonna, let's go here. So yeah, I'm wearing shorts. and a shirt just so I look good from the waist up. So if I take a breath, my belly expands, but also I make sure my rib cage expands. So the trick and the training, I think, that it takes to learn how to support well is to keep the rib cage expanded by gently sort of pushing out. I always think of it, it's like, I've never seen this in person, but on movies, there's the wall where or the room where the walls come in. So you're kind of just not with that much force, but trying to keep the wall from caving in on you. So if I'm singing a scale, I that whole time I'm just working a little bit to keep the ribs out. So that's somewhat counterintuitive. Because I think when we think about supporting something, we usually think about using more breath. So if you are supporting by keeping the ribs expanded, the way I see it, you're actually controlling breath flow. So you're preventing too much breath from leaving your body. So that has to do with a lot of science that I don't always fully understand and don't want to take the time to deal with. I just know how to teach it. But it's subglottal pressure, so the pressure that builds up beneath the vocal folds, and having the right amount of it so that the vocal folds respond and vibrate in the most efficient way. So that's the next thing I would do. Exercise the falsetto and exercise your ribs. So as you practice, or as you sing something, just the next time. Oh, there was a question. I think I can start answering it now. The best way to breathe well, extremely consistent, especially when a lot of time isn't given for a breath. Ooh, okay. Well, the first thing that came to mind is I will just skip notes. That might be not be the best advice to give a choral singer, but if I just don't have time to breathe, but I need to breathe, I sacrifice a note or two, and and take the breath that I need. But I think it's all practice. So being able to release the abdominal muscles quickly, so that the breath just comes in quickly. And along with that is the rib cage expands quickly. So as soon as I start making a sound, the ribs engage in that little outward way. And I'm also not sucking in the belly. From what I understand, some women, there's kind of a difference between men and women. Women, it seems to work for a lot of women to have a feeling of coming in, but for men it's more of a feeling of slightly pushing out. But in my teaching, the way I teach seems to be effective for men and women. So that's something that just takes time and practice and really some trial and error with each singer. So I'll move on. Because 45 minutes is not a lot. Okay. Oh, one thing I wanted to mention is vibrato. So I think generally in the choral foundation choirs, a little vibrato is okay. So I think that's good. In case you don't know, so vibrato is really when it's happening, things are good. When it's not happening, you're holding back something. Something is tightened to keep it from flowing. So in comfortable singing, we want to be free of tension. So I sort of fake if they want straight tone. Instead of going ooh, I'll be ooh, just the lightest vibrato that's not very wide at all, and that takes practice and good use of my breath. I want to get to the Randall Thompson Alleluia, especially because it's, I think, presents the most challenges. Let me get it here on my iPad. Oh, before that, I want to give a few brief, just vocal exercises that I like. So I do very simple things. So I start in the chest voice, just ah, or ooh, oh, or a little slide, oh, and that's from about a C to a G, just in a pretty narrow range, just to make sure it's strong and warm, that those muscles are warm and ready to go. And then I do actually a wider range with falsetto. Starting around middle C or D and going generally up to the next C. I don't know why I did a minor third. So I work up and down. I try to do this every day just to keep my voice in shape. And then I do some things that go between. So I like the E vowel especially. E, E, and sort of intentionally thinking of going from something a little bit chestier to a little bit headier. So instead of E, I think E, right there, it's a transition. It takes time and practice if it's something you're not comfortable with. So, but I also think you can just play around with it. Okay. So as I said, I think about the Randall Thompson Alleluia, there are a lot of choices to be made. So the first page is all one note, except for the last measure. So, so I'm
I
gonna
don't know
give.
if we have that music.
Oh, you don't have this.
I don't know if we have that one.
Can
No,
I get some?
it wasn't part of the materials sent out.
Oh, shoot. Well, I'll share my screen then. Okay, you have the road not the road. Oh, weird. Okay.
Yeah,
Those
we
were
did
not.
the road not taken last week, but we haven't had the Hallelujah.
Okay. Well, that must have just been one of those things, because I know they knew that I was doing this, but it's okay. There we go. Well, it's coming, I think. You don't see the music yet, do you?
It still says screen mirroring on there. But
Yeah, that's
it's still
strange. Sorry, I hate these technology problems.
going. It's always fun.
Yep. Okay, there we go. So I'm gonna zoom in. So on this first page, just at the beginning, I think the natural tendency is something like this. Alleluia, alle. So in my voice teacher mind, that's more chest voice in the tone than you need. Some people might describe that as it sounds pinched or tight. And after about 3 measures, it would be pinched and tight. So I find the more comfortable head voice or mixed voice, Alleluia, It's not falsetto. It's almost falsetto. Hallelujah would be falsetto. And I think that's tiring too. So a very light mix, I think, is more comfortable. Hallelujah. Another thing to notice, I put on my sheet, on my handout, under the jaw, bocca chiusa, which is the Italian term for closed mouth, basically. So it is specifically for this area of your voice to have, you're basically closed in the front, but you have space in the back. So when so a lot of, you'll hear a lot of times, open your mouth, that'll solve everything. Well, it's not true. It can cause a lot of problems. So you don't need a lot of space to sing this way. Alleluia, 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 alleluia. So I'm pretty comfortable, and I could do that for a while. Then I'm going to skip around. Actually, at the bottom of the page. So as I see it, Alleluia, I stay in that very light mix instead of Alleluia, which would be the more natural thing. Because the next note would be harder to get to. Alleluia. My voice is already in that place, so it's easier to go. And then this fun part right here. So if I start, the natural way would be a bit of chest voice. Alleluia. So I think a less trained tenor would be going back and forth between chest voice and head voice and mixed voice, whatever. So my recommendation, which I don't think is too difficult, is Hallelujah. Sorry. Hallelujah. So keeping it all in the same light mix. And then the same for the next part as it gets lower. Oh, yeah. Because the dynamic is really soft. Hallelujah. I'll skip to another part. So it kind of continues in the same way. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. It would be really easy to go, hallelujah. But that would be too loud, first of all, and it wouldn't blend. And it would make other things more difficult. Then we get to some... So all this would be in that just very nice, heady tone. Okay, then we get to this part. Is that the right key? Yes. So I got a little louder, but I was basically still in that nice heady place. And even here. So, hallelujah. This is kind of the place in this song for me to relax a bit. I actually consciously choose to go to a little more chest voice, but a quiet chest voice. So, hallelujah. Alleluia, Alleluia. Thompson might have put that in there on purpose so that we could survive what's to come. Okay, then we get to sing. Alleluia, Alleluia, Alleluia. So I'm using more chest voice in that tone than I did before. Alleluia. So I think just having the intent of and the control over your voice to say, okay, I'm going to use a little more chest voice, a little more head voice or falsetto, or a different mix. I think that helps to save your throat. Okay, then it gets louder. Alleluia, Alleluia, Alleluia. So then I'm just singing like a soloist if I'm in a choir that allows that. And I happen to think that's what Randall Thompson intended. Then this stringendo part. Alleluia. Just singing like I want to use my voice. Okay, this is something to talk about. It's hard, especially after you've been through everything else. But on a good day, for me, I sing an ooh, a real ooh vowel there. Hallelujah. Sorry, wrong. Hallelujah. I forgot what comes next. But I think it's a misconception that you can't sing an ooh vowel on a high A, but if you can learn how to do it, it feels really good. Hallelujah. Chest voice. Hallelujah. And then you're pretty much home. And you can choose a lighter mix in this ending part. Hallelujah. And then it's probably super quiet at the end. And even if I were singing second tenor, Amen, which is a very light mix for a low D. So another thing I learned just in the past few years is the idea that blend is something that happens when, or what we're taught all the time is you have to sing the same vowels in order to blend. But if two people are singing the same vowels but singing in two different registers, if one is like in a chesty mix and one's in a heady mix, they're not going to blend. The one who's singing Alleluia is going to stick out. But if the director, or if you as the singer knows how to fix that, you might say, hey, can you use a little more head voice? Hallelujah. Or you yourself do that as an example. It's more comfortable, and the director will be happier, and the audience. Did you have The Road Home by... Okay, good. We'll spend about a minute on that, and because it's much easier. By Stephen Paulus. I actually want to show you one quick excerpt of a video.
Tell me where is the road I can call my own, that I left, that I lost so long ago.
Okay, so that's the Taylor Festival Choir from Charleston, South Carolina. It's made up of pretty much soloists from around the country, and they come to Charleston and rehearse for about 2 days and then do a concert. So we haven't been able to do that, so we did a virtual choir. So, and the road home, just on the first page, that covers basically the whole song of the things you have to deal with. The thing is, though, it starts piano and it ends pianissimo in the first phrase. So I would be thinking that same heady mix. I could go. But that's not as blendy and good for choir. But when you get to this, tell me where, that's pretty chesty for me, but quiet. Is the road I can call my own. Then you get to all these years. All these years I have wandered, oh, where will I know there's a way? To me, that's just a nice, like I would be singing a folk song. It's an easy range. It's kind of my most easy singing, which is great. So fortunately, this one doesn't present a lot of challenges for us. But considering the time, I guess I should answer some questions now. And hopefully I can. Are they in the chat? Is that where I should go?
Yeah, let me unmute myself. There was one question earlier from Steve.
Okay.
I've always sung like with the radio or just walking around and head falsetto. So when I move higher than D5, I used to always flip. I've been taking a lot of coaching on moving to a mix instead. When I'm tired or afraid, when I hit higher, the flip comes. Is there an exercise to work through that?
Oh, okay. Oh, I found it. So I'm going to read that again to myself.
Oh, sure.
When I move
Yeah,
higher
it's
than,
kind of long.
yeah. I've been taking a lot of coaching on moving to a mix instead. Yes, okay. When I'm tired or afraid I might not hit a higher note, the flip comes. Is there an exercise to work through that? Oh, definitely. I think the breath thing helps with the ribs. If you're tired, go to the ribs. Because I think if you're tired and not quite sure what you're doing, you might do something where your throat tightens. And if you go to the ribs and use them, I think that saves your throat in many ways. But also if you're tired, so many people talk about straws these days. So I'll show 2 quick ways for that. So if you do, so this is good for warming up and warming down, sort of rehabilitation for your throat, for your vocal folds. Just a slide. But if you have trouble singing through that area, it will really kind of tell on you. So just using a straw, it's like you're singing ooh, and sometimes you can pinch it to find the right amount of resistance for yourself. Um, that can help smooth that out if you don't have someone there to listen and guide you. But also it can just make your throat feel better because it is relaxing to your vocal folds. But another thing that is kind of best done with guidance is some exercises like this to stretch your tongue. So I'm singing ah, but not a really ugly ah, just a nice light sound. And if that were not something I'm already comfortable with, it would take a lot of time and effort and patience. So that ah vowel is kind of conducive to mixing if you can do it in a quiet way. If we have more time, I would show you more about that. So what else? Sorry things were blurry.
If you do want to take yourself off mute and ask a question, that's fine too.
Yeah, that's a good, yeah. Doing it, okay. Pilgrim's Hymn. The best way to breathe well, extremely consistent, especially when a lot of time isn't given. Oh, we answered that. Yeah, any other questions?
So you mentioned when you were singing not to open full wide when you're in a more relaxed singing, to not stretch it. Is there, like, when you get louder though, is it okay to open up more like
Oh,
that?
that's a really good question. So my basic theory, I saw John Sabine has a question, so we'll do that. If you're low, so that was from C to C. There's no need to open your mouth, even for an ah vowel. I can open more, which may be for volume, actually. But, up around there is where I need to start opening my mouth. And that doesn't happen much in a choir, I don't think. So that could be controversial that I'm telling choral singers not to open their mouths, but but it works for me. So John, what was your question?
I have no trouble with my higher range. I can sing high notes for days. It's the low range that I have trouble with.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, it's unreliable at best, and sometimes it's just not even there. Like below the tenor F on the fourth line of bass clef, that's the lowest note I can sing reliably.
Fourth F. Oh, the F. Okay, wow. I mean, I can't absolutely answer the question, but I think sometimes that is another type of tension.
Mm-hmm.
Like something in there could be released that just needs to let go and let the vocal folds do their chest voice thing. That's my thought. And just strengthening it possibly. Not to force anything, but find your chest voice or make some, caveman sounds. With breath, just to see if you can release it. I've had a few students who were maybe not quite as high as you, but they developed more chest voice, which I think is important and helpful to have that if it's a challenge.
Now, I did have a whooping cough in 2017.
Oh.
And I'm wondering if that has something to do with it.
Interesting. I don't know. I mean, your voice doesn't sound raspy, but I mean, if it changed after that, then you never know. There could be nerve damage or all sorts of
No,
things
it's
like
the
that.
thing I don't know.
Yeah,
Well,
maybe
when
so.
the rib cage thing seemed to help when I expanded, I was able to get out some of those lower notes I usually can't.
Oh, okay. Well, good. That might
So
release
I'm going to
something.
work with that, and maybe
Yeah,
someday I'll see a doctor.
yeah. Right. Or see me. I'd be happy to
Yeah,
help.
cool. I'd like that.
Yeah. What would you suggest or not learning a new piece in a lower key? Hmm. For me, the only real reason to do that would be if you find yourself tightening to learn a piece in the key that it's written. Um, if the there's a part in the Randall Thompson Alleluia, Alleluia, and you're just learning those pitches, then maybe it's a good idea to take it down to relax. Or, I mean, I guess the easy thing is do it down an octave if you can. Um, and I guess along the same lines, if you find a particular section challenging, turn it into an exercise. You can go it by half steps. I don't know if I can do it right here. Hallelujah. Then I go, Hallelujah. Hallelujah. I do that in lessons a lot, just to ease people into things. Um, Anything else? I mean, wow, we're technically out of time, but if you have other questions, I'll answer them.
Yeah, sometimes when we had choir back before COVID,
Mm-hmm.
I would double as a bass sometimes just to help out. And it was always easier in the morning, but then when you get later in the day or after singing it once, you start to lose that lower register pretty quick.
Right. I think that happens to a lot of people, most people. Um,
Yeah,
Oddly, it doesn't happen to me. I don't lose my low notes.
really.
Um, yeah, I'm a really weird tenor. Um, but I also think that's some sort of tension,
Yeah,
which, yeah, could be worked out. The straw helps. Um,
that's right.
so, yeah. Anything else? And I'm here. I'm reachable by email. Um, Available for lessons. Um,
Oh, what's the science behind the straw?
ooh,
Much.
challenging. Um, so the science behind the straw is that it equalizes the subglottal pressure and so subglottal meaning below the glottis and the pressure above the glottis. So normally you don't have a lot of breath pressure on this side coming out the mouth because the air is coming out the mouth. So when you partially close the hole, when you have this tiny opening, pressure builds up behind the straw, which I only learned this a year ago after I've been doing straw stuff for many years, that when that pressure is equal, the vocal folds don't have to travel as far to vibrate. So it's less violent down there. Um, so it's just a gentler way to vocalize um, than just singing with your mouth open. I saw another.
Brian
Is
Butler.
same thing I just talked about, right? Occluding the mouth, like in a zzz. Yes, it is the same thing. So semi-occluded vocal tract exercises, partially closed, semi-occluded. Yeah, all those things are the same idea. Singing into your
So
head.
if you don't have
Wait, what?
if you don't have a straw, you don't have to have a straw to do this, I think is the point.
Yeah, right. One of my favorite things that I don't tell people is when I get out of the shower, so with a towel, I'll be drying off my face and I'll sing into the towel. Like a wet towel has that resistance, so you can test the voice for the day and see how it's going to be
Hmm.
and start warming up then. So the straw is just. So is the straw just unlimited practice?
Can you just do it for like however long and it'd be fine, or at some point should you
I
open up and
I think you can overdo anything.
yeah.
I mean, I don't think it's dangerous, but no. Okay, I see. Because of the what I was saying about it, the vocal folds traveling less distance, I guess. Um, I mean, I think you can do longer, and the idea is that it does help soothe the voice, but still, I don't think just do it forever. Yes, so we're supposed to remind you that next week is individual artistry in the choral setting. Bring the music to life with Andrew Schmidt and Jenny Lahaski. And apparently you'll be receiving a follow-up email. And one thing you missed in the slides when I was showing the PowerPoint is be sure that Jamia Sales emails get to you, because they'll come from her. Because apparently there's been a problem with some going to spam. But unless you have other questions, I think we'll wrap it up. And thanks for coming. And as I said, be in touch. I'm here.
Thank you,
Great
Jonathan.
session.
So much.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you all. Have a good evening.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.